Hello and welcome to 12 Questions, a podcast where we dissect anything and everything with the same incisive set of queries. I'm Jonny.
And I'm Paris.
And this week we are talking about Whatever People Say I Am, That's What I'm Not, the debut album by the Arctic Monkeys in 2006. This album is kind of a bit relevant to our experience here in Sheffield, would you say, Paris?
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely references Sheffield a lot.
Yeah, that's why we like it.
Nice.
References areas near where we are, like Hunter's Bar. I nearly lived in Hunter's Bar, in my second year.
Oh, really?
But instead...
Also references Hillsborough, which is where we poor uni students get sent to do exams sometimes, and it's really far away.
Shame. You ever done an exam in Hillsborough?
Yeah, twice.
Oh, I haven't had to do one yet. Well, I'm
Engineers.
Touch wood. I've got one more set of exams to go. I'm hoping I don't have to go out to Hillsborough to take an exam. So yeah, lots of local colour in this album from our local lads, the Arctic Monkeys, who we all like to claim that we see on the street every day, but actually they don't tend to be around here so much because they're off touring around the world.
One of them lives near a friend of ours.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Which one?
I think it's Nick O'Malley.
Ah, what does he do?
I think he's the bassist.
Ah, okay.
I hope he's the bassist.
Okay, yeah. So basically, in summary, we know the bassist from the Arctic Monkeys, so we're so what we're just doing is looking at our friends' band's debut album.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
Let's apply our incisive set of queries to this debut work. I'll give you a bit of background first. It's quite a rocky album. Basically,
Indie rock.
It's basically, I'd argue, a concept album about going out and the nightlife around here in Sheffield.
Yeah.
Right? So it's from a young man's perspective, lots of kind of social observations about the nature of things and of anecdotes of wild tales of nights out. But yeah, it's very nightlife based.
Yeah, one of the B-sides, Sticking to the Floor, is thought to be about Corp, which
is that right?
A nightclub in Sheffield, which is notorious for having a very sticky floor.
Extremely, yeah. You need special shoes.
Special shoes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, let's get right into the questions. Do we have a favourite character in this album?
Well, I don't know if he's my favourite character.
Okay,
I think we need to address the album cover.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's a very iconic album cover. It's got a guy smoking a cigarette looking very drunk.
Yeah, he looks at it.
He is Chris McClure, a friend of the band, who they gave about 80 quid to go out and get smashed so they could photograph him after. Fun anecdote for you. He is also the brother of John McClure, who is the frontman of a band called Reverend and the Makers, who are also from Sheffield.
Yeah.
And I don't know if the two bands are such like buddies now, but they definitely used to have a lot of... Alex Turner of Arctic Monkeys has done guitar on a Reverend and the Makers track, and You Can Never Beat the Bandit No, which is a lyric in View from the Afternoon, is thought to be a reference to the same fruit machine as in Bandits by Reverend and the Makers, and the reference to a robot from 1984 in I Bet You Look Good on the Dance Floor is thought to be another reference to John McClure. So there's a lot of reference to another Sheffield band, which is quite nice. And I think it's just nice that they just used a friend for their cover art rather than getting a proper model. Like they just... It's really nice that they just paid their friend to go out and have a nice night and get drunk.
That is good.
So they could photograph him.
Yeah, that speaks to the authenticity of the album as a whole.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a local guy, obviously, because he is one, but there's something contrived about it. And I like that speaks to the kind of aesthetic of it. Like the album is... it's kind of messy. It sounds like they just plugged all their amps in a room, turned the mics on and just played it. There's the production isn't particularly slick, and that's good. It's got a nice edge and energy to it.
Yeah,
and that the album art exemplifies it pretty well, and it's dominant character on it. Oh, that's good. I like that. And would you like to hang out with that guy? Do you think? Think it'd be fun on a night out?
I don't know.
Yeah,
because I don't really drink. So.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, and he's smoking.
This guy got drunk off like 80 quid.
Yeah, that's true.
Drunk.
What was in like it took 80 quid to get him that drunk?
Well, apparently they gave him 80 quid.
Well, here's the thing, because this is in Sheffield, right? That's another thing about how the Arctic Monkeys, it's a local infusion. If that were London, I mean that might just get you a bit tipsy, but exactly. Yeah, no, he embodies the album quite well in quite a succinct way. I might mention another character.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is quite an obvious choice, but I think it can be argued that all the songs can be ascribed to the point of view of one person.
Yeah.
Whether that's what Alex Turner, the singer, thinks, or a character that he's playing as the lead singer of this band. And that's quite nice because it's intimate. Like if you kind of take levels of abstraction, you can have third person past tense, which is the most lame form of music. That's Iron Maiden's Alexander the Great, Christopher Lee's Charlemagne.
Yeah.
You can have third person current tense, which is storytelling, which is like a bit more epic and Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
You have first person not plausible. So when Queen says, I see a little silhouette of a man, you're pretty sure that's not Freddie Mercury seeing a little silhouette of a man. And
Scaramouche.
well, yeah, exactly. And then this album, you have what I think is the most intimate form of songwriting, which is first-person plausible, which is, you can believe that Alex Turner
is walking around Sheffield seeing all this happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And he puts himself into it as well.
Yes, absolutely.
Like, red lights indicate doors are secured. He is in that.
Yeah, clearly.
He's in Mardi Bum. Sometimes he's watching things, sometimes he's actually there.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes he's watching things, sometimes he's actually involved in the action.
And either him or this character, the narrator, he's an underdog. I think that's what I like about him. The very first line of the album really sets it up. Anticipation has a habit to set you up for disappointment in evening entertainment. That really is the crux of the album, because it's an album about hopes, but ultimately being disappointed.
Yeah.
In that same song, there's a line about taking the jackpot out of the fruit machine and then putting it all back in. It's like you can achieve a small victory, but the house always wins, you know. And he's always pining after girls, but he never gets one. Or if he does get one, they're arguing, or he gets turned away from a club, or, you know, the taxis man's rude to him. Like, he's always on the back foot. He's always the underdog. And I think that makes you root for him.
Yeah.
Because you can kind of identify with that.
Yeah, I think everyone can. He's a very, like, a real character.
Yeah, absolutely. Whereas, I don't know, sometimes you see in pop music when people are talking about nightlife, it's like, oh, I'm the best at it. You know?
Yeah.
Like, oh, we have all these girls and, oh, we spend all this money on wine. God, that's how middle class I am. We spend all this money on shots and stuff.
Yeah.
But whereas he's a more grounded, real underdog, and I think it's easier to relate to.
It's not like Shorty got them apple bottom jeans and the whole club was looking at her, you know? Like, I don't think the whole club was looking at her.
We are so cool and contemporary with our knowledge of pop music.
Down with the kids!
Exactly. And I think the idea of not just being a songwriter but a narrator really comes through in the last track, A Certain Romance, which is like, it's almost like a reverse overture in the album.
Okay.
So it's like a summary. He kind of takes a step back and he's talking about, the song is about the town, you know, about there ain't no romance around here. And he's making observations about boys in bands and the kids that like scrap the pool cues in their hands. And I think that's quite nice as well. It reminds me of A Midsummer Night's Dream, actually.
Okay.
It's a bit like at the end when Puck is saying, oh, if we hope you've enjoyed our show, but if it's caused offence, you know, think of it as just a dream. And, you know, he's saying you just can't get angry in the same way. It's just a set of tales about this area where there's a certain romance. So yeah, as an unusually narrative force from a songwriter, I like the narrator in this album.
Okay. Johnny.
Yes.
What was your favourite colour?
Ooh, see, colour was something I think we really struggle with looking at this album. There's
Nothing really jumps out as much as it did with Hot Fuss, for example.
No, there's I mean, this is a very personal take, but I think the guitar tone feels quite blue. that's my little observation about it.
Yeah, I can see what you mean in some songs. I'm not sure it does in all. I mean, I think it goes through shades of blue. I think sometimes it's a more light blue when it's kind of a lighter guitar. Yeah. And then when it's a heavier guitar, maybe it's like a murky navy.
Okay, yeah. I think definitely when the guitar is on its own, there's some rhythmic bits. At the start of A Certain Romance, I think it's quite blue because there's quite a lot of, it's quite middly. I don't know, it just feels blue. But there's no justification for that.
Yeah.
Red is name checked in the album.
Yeah,
it's the only colour that's mentioned.
Red is mentioned a couple of times. So you have red lights indicate doors are secured.
Yep.
And you have in When the Sun Goes Down, he says he told Roxanne to put on her red light, which is obviously a reference to the police.
Yes.
But it's interesting because both those times it's about someone trying to get away with something.
Oh, yeah?
So in Red Lights indicates doors are secured, he's trying to basically get away with not paying the taxi fare and running out of the taxi.
Oh, yeah, do you want to jump it?
But because he's the underdog, he doesn't manage it
No,
because the doors are secured. But in He Told Roxanne to Put on Her Red Light, the he referred to is the scummy man of the song who gets away with everything.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, like that comes back to what you were saying about the underdog. The underdog doesn't get away with it, but the scummy man does. Okay. So maybe red the red lights illuminate the injustice in this album, perhaps?
Okay, so injustice, does that evoke black and white in colours? Is he making a judgment there?
I mean, he does call the guy a scummy man, that's quite judgmental.
Yeah, it is. I mean...
Can't get around that.
Yeah, but he himself is a bit cheeky, you know, he likes to get drunk and go out and... I mean, that's not wrong in itself, but he tries to... Well, I guess he does try and hop out of the taxi, so he's not pure. You can make a grey argument. I mean, Sheffield, I can tell you from experience, is a bit grey. You've got steel, which is grey. You've got lots of clouds, which is grey.
Sheffield's lovely, though.
Don't give it
a bad name on our podcast.
Yeah, no, Sheffield is is very lovely. But maybe black and white is there because there's not that much nuance to any moral condemnation, he says. So, for example, on Perhaps Vampires is a bit strong, but he's completely condemning. There's no nuance.
Yeah,
he's it's bad or it's good.
All you people are vampires and all your stories are stale.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite harsh.
Yeah. So it's black and white, really.
Yeah.
So maybe that's the colour we're looking for. So we've got black, white, red and blue. That's quite a...
very colourful album.
I guess
it's full of colourful characters.
Well,
so
of course.
It stands to reason that it's colourful.
Should we move on to our next question?
Yes, absolutely. So, question 3. What was your favourite meeting?
Well, musically, there's a lot of transitions in the songs.
Yeah.
So the song will very rapidly switch into a different gear.
Mm-hmm.
Like it'll start slow and then, bam, suddenly it's quick, or it'll quiet to loud or vice versa, or all the instruments will cut out.
Yeah.
Like dynamically it switches around a lot. And that can be a fun meeting, like suddenly loud to soft or something like that. And you see it throughout. And I think I really like that because it feels like it's a band that plays live.
Yeah.
Like those are the kind of things you think up when you're gigging. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're I'm not saying you can't pick it up in a studio, but when you're playing something live, that's something that really pops. You're like, oh, we should do this at this gig and see how it works.
I think that adds to the kind of storytelling as well, because in Still Take You Home, it has quite a menacing introduction and then it goes all like light and peppy.
Okay.
Whereas in When the Sun Goes Down, it's quite a light guitar beat and then it goes into a very menacing riff.
Okay, so it's the opposite way around.
Yeah, but it's interesting because they're both about taking a woman home, but in very different ways. So Still Take You Home is about, picking someone up at a nightclub and going home together. Whereas When the Sun Goes Down is about picking up a prostitute.
Okay.
So there's a contrast in terms of the musical thing is flipped.
Yeah.
So I think that's interesting.
Should we pull up a clip?
Yeah, okay. Here is a clip.
Coming up first, we have the intro to Still Take You Home. You hear this kind of menacing, kind of evil sounding riff.
Yeah.
And then nice little cut up there, but still quite evil, or aggressive, and then suddenly, it's quite pleasant, isn't it?
Oh, look!
Yeah, just walking along, it's a sunny day. So we've gone from kind of menacing to more positive in this song. And then this is When the Sun Goes Down.
Yeah.
And so this is more, slow and I think it's a bit mournful.
It's quite light.
Yeah, but definitely very light.
Said he's a scumbag, don't you?
And then it goes into a bit of a darker
riff.
It's quite
this is quite mean, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very mean.
This is very this guitar is making a bit of a wailing noise, and then you have this. Ooh. Yeah, that's the riff that someone gets punched to, I think. Yeah. Okay, so and that has the narrative significance of comparing Picking Up a Girl, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is a pretty cool meeting, actually. There is a nice other little meeting. It's quite small, but it happens in Fake Tales of San Francisco, which is just a meeting between the drum and the rest of the band. So just to pull up a clip now, if you listen to the drum, the drum is matching the instruments from beat to beat. So it's like bum, 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 bum. Hear that? Yeah, so every drum hit is an instrument hit, which I think is quite nice.
Yeah.
So there are some nice meetings in the album. Did you have a favourite of those?
I think I'd go with the contrast between When the Sun Goes Down and Still Take You Home.
Yeah, I think I'd agree.
And on that note, shall we move on to question 4?
I would love to.
Which is, how would your nan react to this?
Okay, how would your nan react to this? Well, I've been thinking about this a fair bit.
Okay.
So my initial thought was, my nan wouldn't like this. Sorry, one's nan wouldn't like this because it's all about going out and getting drunk, and there's quite a lot of,
rowdy behaviour.
Yeah, there's rowdy behaviour. There's violence in it, prostitution in one song, And in Paris, I don't know if you'd echo that or not. Like, initially you'd think that a nan wouldn't be into it.
Yeah, definitely initial gut reaction is that the nan wouldn't like it.
But I've thought about this a bit more. And I'm going to posit that actually this album would be appreciated by nans.
Okay.
Okay, so here's my thinking. And it's kind of based on two things. The first is that, as we said, this is a concept album about going out with your friends and having an evening entertainment, as he puts it. So going out and having drinks with your friends. But I don't think any aspect of that has really changed in the last 60 years, right?
Except maybe the texting.
Well, yeah, there's a little bit of texting, but the main tenets of it are dance floor, check. Alcohol, check. Taxis, check. it's all essentially the same. Even if you were a local here, like the names of the places haven't really changed.
Yeah.
He doesn't really mention particular music or band. Well, I guess he mentions the band Effect Tales from San Francisco,
But
but
it's very vague.
yeah, and they're posers just as there would be posers back then. Like trilbies and glasses of white wine aren't exactly a 2000s thing by any means. So I think we should give our nans a bit of credit that to look past them being the lovely nans that we know and that they were young once as well, and they used to go out and have a good time. But also, I think that the narrator, as we've mentioned before, I think he's actually a moral authority in this album. So it's easy to look at the album and see there's a lot of immoral behaviour going on and think of it as immoral work.
Yeah.
But I think that from the songwriter's, the singer's point of view, that's almost always condemned. So the narrator talks about people wanting to throw a punch at him, but the narrator never throws a punch. And the narrator talks about the scummy man, but he hopes that you're not involved at all.
Yeah.
Or the narrator talks of someone acting like a silly little boy, you know. So any behaviour that's untoward is almost universally condemned.
Yeah.
And whilst you might say, hold on, well, he tries to get out of paying for a taxi, I think what really sums it up is actually the last line of the album, which is, and over there's friends of mine, what can I say, I've known them for a long time, and though they might overstep the line, you just can't get angry in the same way. And I think that's what it's about, and I think that's what the nans would resonate with, that it's kind of cheekiness, like, yes, some bad things happen in this album, but you just can't get angry in the same way. It's just kind of what happens. It's your mates. It's just how things went down. And I just think we could expect our nans not to get angry in the same way, you know, because this is this real album, this is a description of life, and it's kind of forgiven when you're there and you know it. I think that's what it is, at least pertaining to the songs in the album.
Okay, yeah.
This could work for a nan.
I think this could work for a nan if they thought about it in the way that you do.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Paris. That's, well, if all nans thought the way that I did, what would the world be like?
What would the world be? Oh, my life.
I mean,
I dread to think.
Yeah, I guess you could put in a counterpoint that sometimes the music is a bit
rough.
Bit rough.
Yeah.
But then again, if you look back at Jimi Hendrix in the 60s, he's making the same kind of wailing noises on the guitar as the Arctic Monkeys are. I mean, arguably, some of that stuff is even less palatable. So, yeah, I think your nan could definitely give this a shot.
She can get on board.
Yeah. Jump in, nans. Have a listen to the album.
We recommend this album to all the nans out there.
Great. So, moving on to our next question. If this album were a food, what food would it be?
Well, I'm a little annoyed that we kind of played our ace card on this with the Killers podcast
Did a
episode.
bit. So what did we say on the Killers?
Because we said it was like a night out food and it was like gravy on chips.
Yeah.
And this is about a night out and it's set in Sheffield.
Yeah,
so
true.
it's absolutely gravy on chips. So we've had to have a step back and come at this at a different angle.
So I think it could be argued that this album is a biscuit.
Okay.
Well, it's wholeheartedly English.
Right.
There's a lot of regional dialect in this album. Would you say, Paris?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you've got like the word Mardy is used a lot, and you've got
You're all right.
right
Up to summit.
Up to summit.
Yeah, it's dripping in that.
It's very, very English.
In that South Yorkshire dialect. Yeah. So it's very English, like I'd argue a biscuit is, and on that moral aspect with the narrator, it's kind of wholesome.
Okay. Yeah.
In a way. Well, it's like it's well intentioned.
It's definitely very. I mean, you know what you're getting with it. Like, you know what you're getting with a biscuit. It's not trying to pretend to be something it's not. And this album is very candid in that way.
Yeah, so maybe like a rich tea. I mean, you know what you're getting with a rich tea. It's
absolutely.
It's quite plain.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of there.
It's reliable.
Yeah, it's reliable and consistent. Is this rich tea, though? They are a bit bland.
There's something about, because it's definitely not a bland album. Like, it's got a lot going on. The only song that's possibly bland is Riot Van. So maybe Riot Van is the rich tea of this album.
Yeah, okay. Or maybe something like, maybe a bit more...
Maybe like a hobnob.
Yeah, okay.
Because it's kind of, rough around the edges.
Yeah, that's good.
But it's also...
Because it's not... It wouldn't be a sweet... Well...
Yeah, I don't think
it wouldn't be a
it's a
chocolate biscuit.
album.
No,
Yeah,
definitely not a chocolate biscuit. Yeah, a hobnob's pretty good. Or maybe...
Name-wise, right? A jammy dodger. Because the scummy man is a jammy dodger. Like, he's jammy, as in fortunate, and he dodges getting in trouble.
Yeah.
Unlike the narrator in Red Lights Indicate Doors Are Secured.
Yeah.
He is not such a jammy dodger. But there are people in this album that are jammy dodgers in that they
it's a cheeky
get
album.
away with it's cheeky.
There's a lot
They
of
get
jammy
away with
characters in
things.
this.
Yeah. So
And on that, the Jammy Dodger, correct me if I'm right in thinking that they have a heart on them these days in the middle.
yes, I believe so.
And the narrator is certainly someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, you know, he's
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. And you might say because the jam is in the middle, he's a bit of a sweetheart as well.
I think he tries to be.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
he's,
So just as the biscuit has a sweet center, the narrator has sweetheart. So there you have it. This album is a Jammy Dodger.
Or a hobnob.
Or a hobnob. Dunk one of those in your tea while you
Maybe
give this
not a
album
rich
listen.
tea.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe only one track. Okay, so we're just barreling through on our next question. Paris.
Oh, absolutely. Question 6.
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Why would you do that?
Oh, why would you do it? Well, this is an album that we both enjoy.
I love this album.
So fortunately, there aren't that many huge criticisms that we can exclaim in our trademark exasperated manner. However, I'd like to, if I may, just go off on one a little bit about guitar solos.
Oh, tell me all about guitar solos, my friend.
So this is the Arctic Monkeys have played to their strengths. There aren't that many guitar solos in this album, which I think is a good thing because the lead guitar really isn't that strong.
Okay.
And I'm going to play you some examples. I've got a few solos lined up, but I'm just going to go through the main points. What I'll do actually, if you'll permit me, is I'm just going to talk about guitar solos for a bit.
Go for it.
So a guitar solo is an extension of the melody of a song, right? So you've got the singer sings the melody, and then when the guitar takes over, it's an extension of that, so it continues on. So just as a great tune is memorable, you know, everyone can remember, I don't know, Chelsea Dagger or something like that, so it gets stuck in your head. I think a great guitar solo has to be memorable as well. It has to be tuneful.
Okay.
So there's a reason people remember the guitar solo to Bohemian Rhapsody or
I was just thinking that's so strange.
Exactly, yeah. There's a reason people remember that because it's melodic.
Yeah.
It works. I don't think these guitar solos are particularly melodic, and that often happens when people learn to play the guitar because they learn how to play scales and they play notes on the scales and they try and play them quicker. But if it comes, I believe, from a lack of thinking through a solo before you play it. Basically, I don't think you can listen to any of these solos and think someone hummed this tune and then was like, okay, that's what I'll play.
Okay.
I think that it kind of comes from, oh, I've got to play a solo in this key, I'll play these notes. And don't get me wrong, I do this all the time.
Okay.
This isn't like a particularly poor thing, it's just a little pet peeve of mine in guitar solos. So I think that's a consistent theme, is that the guitar solos aren't that melodic. Also, they land on weird notes.
Right.
So like the last note in a bar will be a bit of an odd one. So say you'll have a phrase like da 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 da. It just lands.
Okay,
on
yeah.
If you were writing it out, you probably wouldn't choose to do that.
Right.
But if you're just playing and going from finger to finger, that's where the next finger might feel comfortable, and then you're like, oh well, I'm on this note. And then I think my one final point is they all tend to kind of tail off. One thing that marks good solos is they usually have a bit of build.
Yeah.
They'll start both slow and low, so lower notes and then not as fast, and as they build, they get faster and faster and higher.
Mm-hmm.
So Sweet Child of Mine is a great example about this. It starts kind of low, like na da da, and it starts like you know, I'm available. Hire me. So I don't think these have any of that. So I'm gonna try and not talk too much over these solos, so that you can hear what I'm talking about. But just try and listen out for those things: landing on wrong notes, not sounding melodic, and not building. So we're gonna listen to Dancing Shoes. This is the solo now. Like, it's just notes, you know?
Yeah.
It matches the beat here quite well, I think. There. What was that note? Da, da, da. And then it's getting a bit faster. But he's just run out of time. Like, I don't think he said anything with that solo. And then the next solo is from Mighty Bum. So this, you know, this is memorable. Weird. Yeah, Match with the Drum, lovely there. But where's it going? It kind of ended a bit naff, I think.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. And then this solo from Perhaps Vampires is a bit strong. Okay. Again, my question is, where are you going with this? Yeah, matches the drums as well. So that's the one thing they always have going for them. But where are you going? You know? It feels like you're stuck in this.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to drive his car out of his bubble.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I've just got one more. So I think one last clip that really exemplifies that they're so strong in rhythm guitar and then it just falls apart on the solos. It's just the introduction to my favourite track, A Certain Romance. So I'm just going to start it in the middle of things. So you've got this great bit of rhythm here, the drums really going for it, the guitar's going for it, everything's going, and then you have the lead. This is going alright, this first section alright, you know, nice little bit of tune. This bit here is uncertain, I'd argue. Where are you? Where are you going? Yeah. Okay, now you have the melody again. I'm on board. And then here, it feels like he doesn't know what to do with this. He's playing the same note over again.
You can just picture him looking around like, guys, what's happening?
But then snap, right there. Now we're in rhythm. And it's great again. I'm having a good time again.
Yeah, you know? Yeah, I can see what you're saying, to be fair.
Yeah, so why would you do that? Just to bring it full circle, it's just...
Guitar solo.
Well, just don't bother. You don't have to have a guitar solo.
In summary.
They do really good bits.
Guitar solo.
Well, no, they do really good, like, interesting rhythm section bits, just like those changes that we've played earlier between fast and slow, or in Perhaps Vampires is a bit strong, they have this cool, like, bass jungle section-y breakdown. And they play good riffs. Just don't bother with the guitar solos. They're not their strong point, and that's fine. You can be a rock band without them.
Okay.
Anyway, thank you for indulging me there.
Good lord. Well, I'd say their strong point is lyrics, but why would you do that?
All
it's
right.
actually lyric based.
Oh right, okay. You feel betrayed.
I'm sorry to say this about Arctic Monkeys, but in Mardy Bum, when he says, "Remember cuddles in the kitchen, yeah," to get things off the ground. Like, I don't really like the yeah. It just feels like it's just there to fill the syllables, which seems a bit lazy. And also, like, I want to understand the timeline of this relationship. Like, how has cuddles in the kitchen been the thing that gets their relationship off the ground? Like, did they not go out for dinner first? Did he just straight up come round and cuddle her in her kitchen? Because that feels weird.
I'll be honest, that might be...
Why not the living room?
Well, yeah, it's baffling. And
I don't understand the story here.
And it's in the chorus, so it's clearly important. He brings it up a lot.
Like, how did their relationship start with him cuddling her in her kitchen? I don't understand. Are they housemates?
It's just a bit...
But even then, I don't know.
It just feels a bit weird.
It just doesn't feel realistic.
No, that's it.
And the yeah annoys me.
Why does it annoy you?
Because he's like, "Remember cuddles in the kitchen, yeah." And it's like he ran out of syllables, but he needed to fill a certain number of syllables, so he just went, "Yeah."
Oh, that's a bit lazy, isn't it? Well, it's not getting all he can get in there. I personally, Mardy Bum is a weak point for me on the album.
Okay.
I think it's a bit naff.
Ooh.
You know, laughs and jokes around. It's kind of...
I feel quite attached to Mardy Bum because...
Why?
When I came to uni, I use the word Mardy quite a lot because it's a Sheffield thing and it's a Midlands thing. And I'm from the Midlands.
Yes.
But Southerners that I met at uni were like, "What on earth does Mardy mean?"
Yeah.
And I'd be, what do you mean you don't know what Mardy means? Because this is such an integral part of my dialect. I was like, how do you not know this word? So I'd be like, you know, like the Arctic Monkeys song, Mardy Bum, because it's kind of maybe the only famous use of the word Mardy.
I think it is, to be honest.
So I kind of like it for that, and I feel kind of loyal to the song because it's got my word.
All right. So it's an ambassador for parts of this dialect to the rest of the world. Because this album got really big, you know?
Absolutely.
You said that you were in New York and you heard it played in a restaurant, didn't you?
Oh, that was When the Sun Goes Down.
Oh, yeah. But the point is that if the Arctic Monkeys are big around the world, then that's an ambassador for words like Mardy and All Right and...
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, okay, I see your attachment to it. It doesn't do it for me, but that's because
fair.
I'm a filthy southerner, so maybe it never would. So, in terms of, we've just talked a bit of geographical context and linguistic context, but where would this fit in terms of a historical context?
Oh, so that brings us on to question 7. What is its historical significance?
Absolutely.
Well, I thought it was interesting that the album kind of came to popularity because they would like hand out demos at live gigs and things like that, and also music streaming sites, particularly MySpace. Like MySpace had a big impact in making this album as big as it is, which is interesting because no one uses MySpace anymore.
No,
so it kind of
that
a
really
blast
grounds
from
it
the
historically.
past there.
Yeah. Oh my word.
And also, it's just a very different way for a band to get famous. So yeah, that's definitely interesting.
Yeah.
It's also interesting that I was doing some reading on this, and I saw someone claim that bands like the Libertines, Franz Ferdinand and Bloc Party were all trying to make a sort of British guitar movement within music, but then this album came and just completely overshadowed all of that.
Yeah.
And I would argue that Arctic Monkeys are a lot bigger than those three bands.
That's probably the big... I mean, you got the Kooks and I think Razorlight as well around this time.
They're not half as big as
Well, no,
Arctic
yeah.
Monkeys.
But they're part of this... Yeah, there's a real British guitar kind of happening going on then, which you don't see
and I feel like
these
Arctic
days.
Monkeys don't fit quite perfectly with that tradition. They did their own thing and they got a lot more successful from it.
Okay.
So that's definitely interesting in the history of British music.
All right. Would you say the Arctic Monkeys are one of the last great British rock bands? Like, in terms of... By last, I mean most recent.
Maybe. Because, I mean, they're still around.
Yeah.
And they're still a big deal.
But there are a certain kind of rock. I mean, you've got Muse, for example, are still going.
Yeah.
But they're a very different kind of rock.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, yeah. So it fits into that. Because rock music, I think, historically has really benefited from British surges. You've got the British invasion with the Beatles and the Stones. You've got the new wave of British heavy metal with, Iron Maiden. So I think guitar music has always benefited from, British
Yay!
blues. Yeah, exactly. And so the Arctic Monkeys kind of slot into that very nicely, I think.
Yeah.
There hasn't been a wave of British guitar music for a while. There hasn't been a wave of guitar music, I don't think, for a while. Maybe singer-songwriter, but otherwise, the electric guitar is in a bit of a weird position, musically speaking.
Oh dear.
Right. Well, that's where it fits into historically. Any other historical significance to this album?
Well, definitely the narration style is quite akin to the historical concept of history from below.
Oh, yeah?
Which
Please.
was essentially, within academic history, there was a trend towards just writing about what elites did. So, the history of great men.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, and then at some point within the academic circles, they decided to start looking at the bottom up. So looking at what the masses were doing on the ground.
Yes.
And that was a massive revolution within, amongst historians.
Yeah.
So this album kind of fits, it's kind of similar to that in that he's just talking about your average people on the streets of Sheffield rather than talking about particularly impressive characters.
Yeah, these certainly are street-level tales.
Yeah, street level. That's,
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. And then that would be a snapshot of what Sheffield was like in a bottom-up sense.
Yeah.
Forever, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of preserved that.
Nice. Well, I mean, we could see what Sheffield was like for anyone at any time in our famous purple time machine, which brings us on to our next question. If you could show this to anyone in history, step into our time machine and give this album to them and presumably a player to listen to it on, who would it be?
Well, I'm going to use my 19th century France knowledge.
Oh,
finally,
when don't you?
Finally getting that out.
Oh, my word.
I would give this to Louis Philippe.
Okay.
Who was the King of France between
Yes.
1830 and 1848.
Yep.
And he modelled himself as the citizen king because
Okay.
he came straight after Charles X, who
Yep.
was a very uppity monarch, to put it in the most simple term I can.
Are all monarchs uppity? They're all quite up.
But Louis Philippe tried to act like he was, with the people, one of the lads,
Yep.
He called himself the citizen king.
I see.
And he also tried to model himself quite a bit off Napoleon and also model himself as the heir of the revolution.
Right.
So his general vibe was trying to be a bit more with the people. But he fell short of that because I think he might have appealed to the bourgeoisie a lot more than he appealed to the working classes. And he failed to really bring in policies that actually helped people. Les Mis is set 2 years into his reign and everyone's still miserable.
Oh, yeah.
So, but then in 1848 he gets overthrown by another revolution, because that's the general thing in France in the 19th century, just lots of revolution. But I think if he'd had an album like this, he would have seen the kind of street level
Yeah.
a bit more, and he would have realised a bit better what people want, how people live, rather than being, you know, up on his throne, as it were.
It sounds like he was a bit of a poser, a bit of a fake. Would you think?
Yeah.
So maybe like Fake Tales of San Francisco in this album would have...
So he's got his trilby and his white wine.
Well, yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
he's French, he's got wine, of course.
Yeah, it's, you know, he's not Napoleon, he's from Rotherham or something like that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing. Maybe he would have benefited from like such a scathing indictment of people who pretend to be one thing but aren't.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, okay, so that would maybe brought him a bit closer to the people who he claimed to be
Would have brought him down to earth, I think.
actually representing. Now I would actually give this album to King Henry II of England.
Oh.
See, one of the key lines we mentioned in the album is about there's friends of mine, known them for a long time, though they might overstep the line, you just cannot get angry in the same way. And of course, that would be referring to Henry II's relationship with his Archbishop, Thomas Becket.
Okay.
So Thomas Becket goes on a bit of an excommunicating spree, gets rid of some of his opponents in the church, you know, including Henry II's father. And then Henry II, I think, does get angry, and he says, oh, will no one rid me of this troublesome priest? And then some knights overhear this, and they go and they assassinate Thomas Becket, who had been a long-term ally of Henry II throughout his life. And then Henry II immediately regrets this, and he goes on a pilgrimage to the cathedral in which Thomas Becket died, and he's wearing sackcloth and everything. And you just think, if he'd just, you know, taken a second, and even though his friend had overstepped the line, he'd just not gotten angry about it. He just kind of taken it as a jammy dodger kind of thing. It's a cheeky thing. Maybe listening to this album could have saved Becket's life. I don't know, but I'd give it to Henry II to maybe just lighten up a little bit about such things. You know,
calm
take it
down,
easy.
Henry. Calm down.
You don't want to get rough. You don't want to, like the bouncer in Ritz to Rubble, you don't want to, you know, do something aggressive just for the story. You know, just calm down.
Yeah.
It's all right.
Absolutely.
Don't act like a silly little boy. All right, so that's who we benefit in the past. But will this benefit anyone in the future? We must ask, when will this album be forgotten?
Well, it's worth mentioning that this was actually, at the time it was released, was the fastest selling debut album in British music.
Really?
And it's still...
Ever?
Yes.
Whoa.
And it's still the fastest selling debut album by a band in British music.
Nice.
Which is a massive deal
Yeah,
when
I
you
didn't
consider
know that.
debut albums such as Definitely Maybe by Oasis.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in that sense, it was, you know, it was a massive...
Yeah,
It was a big deal.
made a mark.
But does that mean it's still a big deal?
Well,
is another question.
This is what I'm thinking. This album, I don't know if it gets played that often anymore. I don't know if it's... I mean, it's got its big single, I Bet That You Look Good on the Dance Floor, is still... I mean, you still hear it. But I have my doubts as to whether that is quite popular enough to last forever, if that makes sense.
Maybe not forever, but I think it's still got a good few years in it.
Yeah.
That song in particular.
Yeah, well, that song in particular. But I think... And When the Sun Goes Down is one of the other singles. Yeah, pretty good. But I just don't think it has that cultural momentum to keep going. I don't think this is an album that, you know, our kids will listen to unless we play it to them, you know?
I mean, mine definitely will.
Well, yeah, sure. But I'd argue that whilst this is certainly a good album, I think it is a culturally forgettable album.
Okay, it's interesting that you say that because it's obviously very much about nightlife.
Yes.
And a street level view. And that's
Yes.
a very universal and sort of long lasting experience. Like, that's always going to be...
Yeah.
It's always going to relate to somebody. So it's kind of a shame that it's not going to persist, I suppose.
It does. And it's interesting because the lyrics are, I think, very timeless. It's only dated in a couple of things. The line, there's only music so that there's new ringtones. I think ringtones are more of a 2006 thing than a 2017
press the
thing.
star after she's pressed unlock. That
Oh,
takes
yeah.
me back to my old slide phone.
Absolutely, yeah. So, but apart from that, all the observations are very timeless. But the music, the actual rock sound, is kind of dated, I think.
Do you think it's had a bit of a Beatles effect in that it seems like less of an impact because people have built on it and sort of expanded upon it?
Perhaps. I mean, the Arctic Monkeys didn't...
Not that I'm comparing them to the Beatles.
No,
that's
I don't
flawed.
think they're that musically innovative in that way. I don't think anything we hear that sounds like the Arctic Monkeys from a guitar, bass and drum standpoint can be attributed to them and built off of them necessarily.
Okay.
But I do think that when I hear this album, it doesn't sound like what's in the charts now. And I can't imagine music in the charts sounding like this at least not on the regular, for a while.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even sound like Arctic Monkeys music now either.
Well, yeah.
Because they've really moved away from that style.
They're a lot slicker now in their vocals.
But then I would say that means amongst Arctic Monkeys fans, and particularly sort of Sheffield-based Arctic Monkeys fans, I think that makes it a lot less forgettable, because I think people kind of look back on the golden era of Arctic Monkeys when they talked about their local place, and, you know, they're all about Sheffield. And I think a lot of people were kind of annoyed that they moved on to sort of got a bit Americanized in their more recent album, I'd say. I think that annoyed people, and people will, like, that moves people back to the old album. So amongst Arctic Monkeys fans, this won't be forgotten, because it's like their first album, and a lot of people consider it to be their best.
Well, maybe what you hope is that it won't be forgotten by the band, in the same way that they won't forget their roots.
Yeah.
You know, that they won't... Well, because that's what happens with any kind of art or entertainment. There's that once you get rich and you start jetting around in a plane, all your songs become about jetting around in a plane, you know?
Yeah.
And so you could hope it won't be forgotten, but who knows? Personally, I think this is a cultural artifact, but not a long-lasting
I mean,
monument.
there's certainly, with what you say about their music forgetting its roots, whether or not that's inherently a bad thing.
Yep.
Because, I mean, I'd use the example of Kasabian.
Okay,
Their
sure.
older music doesn't really reference Leicester that directly.
Yes.
Whereas their newer stuff, in the 4813 album, there's a lyric, "Where were we last? I think we separated deep in Leicester." So they're still talking about Leicester in that album. But that album is not as good as their older stuff, in my opinion, anyway. And their recent album, one of the music videos is set in Leicester, which is amazing. I love it, because I'm like, oh, look, that's near my house.
Yeah.
But that album is not a patch on their older stuff.
Okay.
So, is remembering the city roots inherently the best thing to do?
Okay.
Is a question.
No, that's fair.
Ask.
I think with something that's so entrenched in the city as this first album, I'd say yes.
Okay.
But no, I see your point. You know,
I just think you should be cautious about saying that sticking with a specific city in your lyrical narrative. I think you should be cautious in saying that is the best thing to do.
No, you're right. Sgt. Pepper isn't about Liverpool.
Exactly.
No, that's a fair point.
So speaking of not forgetting where you came from, let's remember where the current political situation came from and ask ourselves the question we must ask every day. What is this to do with Brexit?
Yes, the question that we encounter so much in our daily lives we had to put on a podcast. Paris, that was a pretty good segue.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally, it's only taken me, 8 episodes to actually segue into Brexit?
Crushing it.
I'm doing better at segueing into Brexit than some people are, though. Conservative Party, I'm looking at you.
Oh, you've laid the smack down. They'll be reeling from that tomorrow in the papers.
Yeah, they'll all be having an emergency cabinet meeting, like, how do we recover?
Yeah, listening to Mr. Brightside. Okay, so do we have any links between this particular album and Brexit?
Well, my initial thought was the first line of the album, In a View from the Afternoon.
Yes, of course.
Which we have mentioned earlier on, but never mind, bringing it back.
Yep.
Anticipation has a habit to set you up for disappointment.
Okay.
Which reminds me of when, essentially the day after the referendum result, there were articles coming out about people that voted leave now regretted voting leave. And, you know, the anticipation would be the fact that there was a lot of build-up to this referendum.
Yes.
Like, no one shut up about it for a long time.
No, not at all.
And then it set us up for disappointment, because even people that didn't immediately regret voting leave, I think everyone's pretty fed up with Brexit now.
Well, yeah, certainly. I can't imagine anyone who got what they anticipated out of the referendum.
Yeah, I think everyone is disappointed.
Yes, I think I'd agree. And also, I might point to the song Ritz to Rubble as a bit of an allegorical reference.
Okay.
So in this song, there's a bouncer who wants to... He's not going to let you in, and he's going to make an example of you. And there's
I see what you mean.
Yeah, and there's nothing you can say behind. They go through to the bit where you pay. I think that might be allegorical to the bouncer being the European Union and the narrator being the UK if they were to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
They might get made an example of.
Yeah, definitely.
And essentially, not let back in. And then you could try and swap jumpers and make another move. So I don't know if that would be people clamouring for a second referendum, as, trying to swap jumpers, trying to give it a go. Yeah, about the EU being tough about who can get in. But then in that same song, the chorus is, well, I'm so glad they turned us all away. I'll put it down to fate. So maybe, even though it's saying that, they tried to get back in, maybe this is the point of view of someone who voted Remain, but now that it's been passed, they're like, oh, we're just trying to make the best of it.
We're trying to get on with it. So
Yeah.
it's the Noel Gallagher.
Oh, right, okay. Oh, well, I didn't vote, but whatever, it's moved on, and we got to just deal with it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and the whole album is it's English and underdog. Yeah, so it's that underdog English thing that permeates the whole album.
Yeah.
They're trying to come out on top as best as they
Despite
as they
adversity.
can. Yes, okay. So yeah, it relates to Brexit in that this is someone who's trying to make the best of it, even though they recognise perhaps the stickiness of the situation.
Yeah.
Okay, not bad. So this brings us on to our next question. How would we re-genre this piece? What different genres could we see this in?
Well, I thought I had was a kind of street art mural
Oh, yeah.
that sort of puts across these scenes, because they're all very Sheffield based. So
Yes.
the street art would have to be obviously in Sheffield.
Yes.
But it's very rooted in city life.
Yeah.
So I think it would be quite interesting
Okay.
in that kind of sense.
So the mural could have all these characters on,
Yeah.
depicting events in the album.
Yeah,
like
definitely.
the taxi ride and the scantily clad woman in
Yeah,
Sun
you'd
Goes
have
Down.
to put it in a part of Sheffield that's
Oh,
not
well,
frequented
no.
by children.
Oh, yeah, I suppose, or anything like that. Yeah, I like that. You could have it kind of evolving. Or you could have it a bit like The Last Supper, but with different, stages of nightlife.
Ooh, yeah.
So you have like Alex Turner in the middle with a drink in one hand, and then you have the scummy
'cause
man
there are a lot
on
of
his
characters
right,
in
like
it,
Judas.
so that could work.
Yeah, you have
that
the
might be
bouncer on the
blasphemy,
side.
but
No, I think
Never
that's pretty
mind.
fun. I think I'd re-genre it as a pantomime.
oh, I like that.
Yeah, because the album, there's a lot of cool kind of anthemic bits. There's a lot of bits that you can sing along to. So like in the
Yeah.
first track, there's Bear That In Mind Tonight, which is
Yeah, and there's
repeated.
Get Off the Bandwagon.
Get Off the Bandwagon, and I Bet That You Look Good on the Dance Floor. There's a lot of bits which have backing vocals and are designed for the crowd to sing along to.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that chimes in well with a kind of pantomime aesthetic.
He's
that
a
everyone
scummy
joining in.
man.
Yeah.
Oh, no, he isn't.
Oh, yes,
Oh, yes, he is.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you could,
I really like this idea.
yeah, and it brings that cheek and that charm, that
Yeah,
Johnny
it's
Dodger
definitely
vibe.
got the cheeky nature to it.
Yeah, and you could really jazz it up, and you can make the character speak like just so Sheffield it's unintelligible,
Yeah.
At least to me.
Much like David Bradley in Hot Fuzz,
Well,
kind of unintelligible.
Absolutely. I think a pantomime of this, because it is sort of a caricature of pantomime anyway. You got
Yeah.
it's society viewed through a funhouse mirror of everyone being drunk.
Yeah.
So have yourself a drink and go along to the pantomime with this, and I think you'd have a rollicking good time.
I agree with you. That's a good
Okay.
one.
So just to wrap up, we move on to I believe our final question.
Yep, which is question 12.
Mm-hmm.
Give this a more honest title.
So I quite like the kind of jammy Dodger vibe, being an artful Dodger.
Yeah.
It's that same cheeky English huck. I mean, it is a bit consider yourself at home, but not in London, it's in Sheffield. Consider yourself in Sheffield, maybe.
But then I feel like it's not really an Oliver Twist kind of vibe, because,
Okay.
that's very much about these people can't afford to eat kind of thing. Whereas
Right,
this is,
yeah.
they can afford to go out and get smashed.
Yeah,
they're
that's
not
true.
on the edge of poverty.
No, that's
so I
fair.
don't know, there's just something about Oliver that doesn't quite fit with this to me.
Mm-hmm.
And also Oliver is about children, and it's very
Okay,
pure and innocent.
that's not right.
So, I don't know.
Perhaps on your note of bottom, what was it? History bottom?
History from below.
History
History bottom.
bottoms. Historical bottoms. Perhaps a note in history from below, you could use an Arctic Monkeys line from a different angle, from Teddy Picker. You could say, assuming that all things are equal, who'd want to be men of the people?
Oh, yeah, from Favourite Worst Nightmare.
Well, yeah,
It's actually
yeah.
my favourite album of theirs.
Well, there you go. So this is an album about, I think, exposing a lot of the craziness of being a man of the people.
But then it says, that lyric is who'd want to be men of the people, but I don't think this is detaching itself in that
No,
way.
true.
I think this is, saying, you can't be angry at these people. So I don't think it shares the same sentiment.
Oh, perhaps not. Maybe something about, like, one of the lyrics, like, you could never be the bandit, or, set you up for disappointment, something like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't call it set up for disappointment, because that
I
would
don't
imply
think
the
I
album's
was
disappointing,
disappointed
which,
with
no,
this
not at
album.
all.
I love
No,
this album.
It's great.
You've got the song The View from the Afternoon, but I'd argue this is The View from the Night.
Yeah.
Oh, lessons in South Yorkshire dialect.
Yeah.
Coming back to my point on Mardy Bum.
Okay. So this is a primer, if you will, to how people speak around here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, maybe if I'd never listened to this album before I moved to Sheffield, I would be walking around like, what are you people saying to me? I don't know. I definitely would be interested on that note to know how Americans would react to this album, because there's a lot of very British
Yeah.
reference that I think would go over their heads.
Maybe you could call it something like up to summit or something like that.
Well, yeah, because everyone in this is up to something.
Yeah?
Up to summit, rather. Sorry.
Up to something, yes.
Sorry.
Wouldn't you agree?
I just went a bit posh there.
Okay.
Yeah, that's got potential.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right then, so not a bad choice. Up to summit.
Yeah, up to
The
summit.
Arctic Monkeys, because the Arctic Monkeys are up to summit. in
That's
this
a
one.
much shorter title than
Yeah.
whatever people say I am, that's what I'm not.
Yeah, it is a bit of a mouthful,
Does
isn't
it kind of annoy you that it's I am and then I'm?
It didn't until now, and now it does.
It just bugs me.
Oh, and now you know it, listeners, too. Sorry. Okay, right. Any concluding thoughts on the album before we wrap this up?
I just think they're up to summit.
They are. I think Riot Band's a bit boring. I like... The thing is...
I think it's a nice intermission.
It is a nice intermission. And Alex Turner's lyrics still are just as interesting and observational as ever. But, I don't know. It doesn't really do it for me.
Fair enough.
Okay, well, apart from that, on that crazy, wild bombshell of a revelation, I think that's time to wrap up the podcast. Thank you very much for listening. And until next time, I've been Johnny.
And I've been Paris.
Bye!
Bye!